To wherever you are in the world, welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Hour. Today we got a lot of news to cover, all right, for finance stuff. We got Nvidia that's in the news. They have earnings coming up tomorrow, so this is a kind of a big deal, especially for Nvidia because of everything that's been going on with the tariffs, export controls, licensing, all that stuff. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. We'll be talking about the latest update on tariffs. We'll be talking about Tesla. Tesla's in the news today, and we'll be talking about strategy. All right. So we'll be talking a little bit about everything today. So we got an action-packed stream going on today. So you know what? Let's just go ahead and get into it. Let me just get a quick sip of coffee, and then we'll start. All right. So let's get into it, guys, and welcome back. And of course, good morning, good evening to everybody. All right, so this is the portfolio as it stands today. We are still down $21,000. All right, last week we were pretty much in the red. I know the week before we were, thinking we were going to end in the green. This week it'd be choppy, but we ended up ending last week in the red, which is not a big deal. This week we popped green, and we popped green on some really good news. Okay. This came Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, right? And just anytime there's good news, you want to hop into the markets. Okay. So let's take a look at what that good news was. So President Trump hailed a positive step in the U.S. EU trade negotiations as markets hope for a deal. All right. He had basically threatened the EU and said that, hey, they're not negotiating in good faith. They're taking too long. They're basically stalling. So you know what? We're just going to start tariffing them on, June 1st, right? Which is not that long away. It's only like a couple of days away. So he was just saying, hey, we're just going to put a blanket 50% tariff on the EU. And of course, markets reacted very, very negatively to that last week. And then you couple that with, the whole Apple tariff thing, and it was just nothing but bad news, right? Nothing but bad news about trade and tariffs and that sort of stuff. So nothing came good from last week, and we basically ended in the red. But again, on Sunday, he changed his mind. He had some type of a positive call with the EU, and this is basically the conclusion of that, or the outcome of that. U.S. President Donald Trump said Tuesday he was monitoring positive steps in trade talks with the EU after he agreed to delay a 50% tariff on goods from the bloc until July 9th. All right, so now we have about a month and some change before tariffs get implemented. Again, in July is when those blanket tariffs are supposed to come into effect. President Trump did place a 90-day pause on that, and the markets reacted very positively to that. So we're coming up on that, guys. So just keep that in the back of your minds. All right, June is going to be hopefully a lot of good news with trade agreements, okay? And I'm going to cover that here in just a second from the biggest partners that we really should be waiting on. Everything else is going to be kind of, whatever happens, wherever the chips fall. But these trading partners, these top 10, top 12 trading partners, this is really what we need to be focused on, okay? So if nothing happens and come July, we will probably be in for some really bad days, okay? So I have just been informed that the EU has called to quickly establish meeting dates. Trump wrote in a Truth Social post, "This is a positive event, and I hope they will finally, like my same demand to China, open up the European nations for trade with the United States of America." Again, this is all about trade. We're in a trade deficit. We take in more European goods than we sell to Europe. Some of the bigger things is like beef. I think that's a big one. Apparently, we need to sell more beef to Europe because they have more strict laws than the United States does. They have a lot more strict, agricultural and food safety things than we do. Like they banned that whole Red 40 from the entire EU. Meanwhile, the United States was still using it, right? And only recently are we going to stop using the whole Red 40? I think that's what it was. Red 40, it's like a chemical. Well, it's not a chemical, but it's basically ground up like bloodworms, and we use that for food coloring. So it was kind of nasty. But anyways, Trump also said on Tuesday that the EU had been slow walking in negotiations with the White House over a trade deal. Trump said the discussions with the EU were going nowhere. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said in a post on X over the weekend that the EU was ready to advance talks swiftly and decisively, while European Trade Commissioner Marcos Sefcovic said Monday that he had good calls with the U.S. Secretary Howard Lutnick. All right. This is the biggest problem that the EU has, is that there are 27 nations, right? There are 27 member states a part of this EU bloc, right? The 27 member alliance was hit with a 20% tariff on April 2nd as part of Trump's reciprocal tariff strategy, which was then cut almost for all trading partners to 10% for 90 days. Concurrent U.S. duties on auto, steel, and aluminum are also impacting the bloc's exporters. So it sucks to be the EU right now because you have some major players in that space. You have Germany, you have France, you have Italy, right? You have some of these big economic powerhouses in Europe, and then, you know, plus the other 23 member states, right? Poland is another big one, right? But you have all these other separate nations, and they have all their own unique desires, wants, and what they're willing to give up, right? Or what they're willing to take in. So it is really difficult for the EU to come to a trade agreement with the United States because it's not as easy or simple as you know, hey, we'll just give you this and you give us that, right? Because you have 27 hands in the cookie jar. So this is why it's really, really difficult to actually come to a trade agreement with the EU. But hopefully over these next, 30 days or so, something will happen. We'll get some good news from this. And then obviously, as we continue getting more good news on, trade deals, trade agreements, whatever, or even just positive news about negotiations, then we can probably surmise or expect that the stock market is going to react very positively to this news, right? Again, I keep saying this, but this whole stock market is running on nothing but good news at this point. That is it. We're just running on good news, and that is it. Last week, again, Trump said, hey, EU's not doing anything in good faith. We're going to just tariff them 50%, and the market's just tanked, right? And then couple that with Apple tanked as well. But again, this week, it looks like he's taking more of a dovish tone. So hopefully we'll see some better days this week. And of course, the market opened up Tuesday, in the green, almost by 2%. It was like 1.5%, which is again a big deal. All right, just for reference, these are our biggest trade partners with the United States. You have the EU, you have Asian countries, which makes up like 10 Southeast Asian countries. You have Canada, Mexico, China, right? Japan, Germany, South Korea. Germany, I believe, is part of the EU, if I'm not mistaken, as part of that bucket with trade. So I don't know if this would be by itself. But Japan, South Korea, India, UK, Taiwan, and Vietnam, Netherlands, right? So these are the ones that we really want to keep an eye on, especially Canada and Mexico. I think that's the bigger ones. They're literally our neighbors, right? We want to have good trade relations with them. Japan, South Korea, I haven't heard anything, but the last thing I did hear about Japan and Canada, or Japan and South Korea, was that the talks were progressing. They were good news, right? So it wasn't anything bad. India obviously already struck a deal with the United States. UK is working on, or we struck a deal with the United Kingdom as well. So we have two of the top 10 countries or top 10 trading partners already off the table. So hopefully over these next 30 days, we'll get some more clarity, some more fidelity on what's happening. And then obviously that should translate into greener stock days. All right. I see we have a path to retirement in the chat. Welcome, Elijah. Hey, welcome back and good morning or good evening. All right. So Nvidia is in the news. All right. Nvidia has earnings coming up. Their earnings is tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, of course, because I know it's still the 27th, but they have earnings coming up for May 28th. A lot of people, a lot of eyes are on Nvidia right now because they have such a huge, basically a story to tell, right? They're fighting not only the United States regulators, but they're also trying to fight their own battles in China. You have, basically because they can't export their H20 chips to China, guess who's taking that market share? You have Huawei. You also have, I think, Tencent or something like that. You have all these other Chinese companies basically stepping up to the plate to fill in that gap that Nvidia can't meet. And this is causing the competitors of Nvidia in China to basically innovate faster, get more deals done quicker, so on and so forth. So this is a real bad headwind for Nvidia. They have this whole $5.5 billion write-off that they're, basically got to announce. But if you do that trailing 12 months, if this doesn't get resolved, or if they don't find a way around it, or if, they're not shipping anything to China, well, that turns into $60 billion very quickly, right? So you got to keep that in mind. These numbers will keep adding up. I don't think it's 5.5 billions over every month. I think it's actually every quarter. I could be wrong on those numbers, but yeah, not good at all, right? So on April 9th, the Trump administration sent Nvidia a letter and said it was requiring an export license for the company's H20 chip, right? It's a lower version of the Blackwell chip. It's called the Hopper, and it was specially designed for the Chinese market to comply with U.S. Restrictions. Now, Nvidia is coming out with a new lineup of chips that will meet that export control, right? They will be able to export these chips to China, so hopefully they can get past this. But I have a thought and a theory. I don't know how this will play out, but I have a thought and a theory I'll share with you guys in just a second. All right, so following the new restrictions, Nvidia said it would take a $5.5 billion write-down on inventory. Analysts called it the biggest write-down in history of the chip industry, which is actually kind of wild. The potential impact on future revenue is hefty, all right? This inventory write-off implies a $15 billion H20 revenue hit on a rolling 12-month basis, wrote David O'Connor, an analyst with BNP Paribas in a report Tuesday. Now, here's something to think about too. For Nvidia, right? For Nvidia, last time they had earnings, like nothing happened, right? There was no pump, there was no run up, there was nothing. And then as soon as they reported, they had really good earnings, but the stock fell, right? And that seems to be sort of the case right now. There hasn't really been a pump for Nvidia, even though, earnings is coming up. So this is probably, telling me that there's not going to be a pump, and that it's probably just going to drop again in value, right? That's just a thought. It's just a theory. I have nothing to really back it up. There's more headwind with Nvidia than there is tailwind right now. Just for this, just because they can't ship to China. China is one of their biggest buyers, one of the biggest markets that they can't lose. All right. Even though they had all this slew of good news from the Middle East, and all these, projects buying up their chips, that's future. That's for the future demand. So we're talking about, the consensus right now. We're talking about what is it right now. Again, I think they have some real bad headwinds because, again, China is their biggest, one of their bigger markets. So earlier this month, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said in Taiwan that Nvidia used to have 90% market share of graphic processor units in China, but it's been cut to 50% under chip restrictions, right? Not good for this company. Nvidia got some good regulatory news in May when the Trump administration announced it was rescinding the AI deficiency rule, which entailed even more restrictions on the exporting of AI chips to China. So AI deficiency rule came in at the end of the Biden administration, and it basically told chip makers, AMD and Nvidia, hey, you can send your chips or you can sell your chips to these countries, but only in these amounts, right? Because basically what the United States is trying to do is hamper, our rivals, especially militarily. They can use these chips for military applications, so they're trying to hamper that ability, or prevent that from happening. So they basically said, hey, you can ship it, you can sell them, but only in certain amounts, and they have to meet these requirements, right? The export controls. All right. So the Trump administration didn't entirely back away from regulating Nvidia exports, saying at the time that it was planning a new, simpler replacement for the deficient rules, right? So waiting to hear what that is. Again, we're sending a ton of chips to Saudi Arabia, to the United Arab Emirates, and to Qatar. So this, could be a good thing for Nvidia. There's still going to be a lot of demand for Nvidia in the future, right? But of course, sometimes the market is just irrational. And even if Nvidia has great earnings, I still probably think it's going to drop, right? Just my opinion. So if you want to pick up some shares of, Nvidia or, NVDY or NVW, or it's called something else now, NV something. I forget what the new ticker is from Round Hill. That might be an opportunity. All right. Nvidia is said to launch a cheaper Blackwell AI chip for China after U.S. restrictions. Semiconductor giant Nvidia is planning to launch a new chip in China under its Blackwell artificial intelligence AI line at a significantly lower price than the H20 model, which is kind of surprising. That has been subject to export controls. Reuters reported on Saturday, citing sources familiar with the matter. Nvidia in mid-April disclosed that it had received a notice from the U.S. government requiring a special license, which we already covered. The world's second largest company by market cap also warned of a $5.5 billion hit to its, its quarterly results. Okay, got it. So maybe it's not a $60 billion write-off. It'll be more of a $20 billion, which is still a lot of money. I mean, all things considered. China is a big market for Nvidia. Revenue from the Asian nation, including Hong Kong, totaled $17.11 billion for Nvidia's fiscal 2025 reporting, representing 13.1% of the total annual revenue. So again, this is a good thing for Nvidia. You know, they were talking about this earlier in the month where they were going to redesign the chip for, you know, to allow it to be shipped to China, but they were talking about the Hopper chip. So now they're talking about the Blackwell chip, and the Blackwell is their flagship chip right now. It's their newest one, their latest and greatest. So to allow that, that's really interesting. To give, you know, China access to this chip is really interesting. And I don't know if, you know, the Trump administration might flip the switch because they're still in talks with China. They're still trying to figure this out. All it would take is just a little light to the fuse. And, you know, then you have not only tariffs happening again, but you're going to have the administration, the Trump administration say, you know what, Nvidia, you can't ship anything to China. So they still have that headwind ahead of them for Nvidia. So again, just investors got to keep that at the top of mind, all right? Because again, a Truth Social post can send this stock tumbling down quite a bit. So just keep that in mind is all I'm saying. Nvidia plans. So this leads me into a thought, right? So if Nvidia can't ship stuff, right? They have all this export controls and licensing things on top of them. What is preventing them from just creating the chips in China? Right. So recently, Nvidia planned a Shanghai research center. OK, they have one in Taiwan and they have one in China. Right. So Nvidia is seeking to build a research and development center in China, and the company's top boss, Jensen Huang, discussed the plans with Shanghai's mayor, Gong Zhang, when they met in April, the Financial Times reported. All right. So what is stopping Nvidia from just saying, you know what? We don't plan to ship these chips from China into the United States so we can curve, you know, the whole tariff stuff and you know, basically diversify where we're creating our chips, just like Apple is diversifying their supply chain to India. Why can't we do the same thing? So I think, and again, it's just an idea, I think Nvidia might actually go ahead and work with SMIC, which is China's largest semiconductor manufacturing company, right? It's their foundry, similar to like Taiwan Semiconductors. And Taiwan Semiconductors, we covered this many times on the stream. They are one of the most valuable companies in the world because they create all the GPU chips, right? But China has their own foundry. You know, Intel, they have their own foundry, not as popular, but TSMC definitely has their own foundry, and they're the biggest one, right? So what would prevent Nvidia to go to China and say, hey, we'll manufacture our H20s here, or we'll manufacture, you know, the Blackwells here for you guys, right? I think this might be a play that Nvidia is going to try and attempt. I honestly do. This would be good for Nvidia. But it might piss off the current administration. So we'll see what happens. If it pisses off the current administration, no idea what will happen. Again, we're in a free market, all right, free stock market, you know, capitalist ideology, capitalist economy. So this is totally allowable, right? This is completely allowable. But I wonder what, you know, if any problems that would cause between Nvidia and, you know, the Trump administration. Because again, right now, a lot of the tech giants, they have really good favor with the Trump administration. The Trump administration has, you know, some two big audacious goals: deregulate artificial intelligence and anything that has to do with artificial intelligence, right? And deregulate the crypto industry. So a lot of the tech giants, the tech bros, you know, they're doing really well, and they're seen in the eyes of Trump as favorable, right? Even that little spiff that Apple had with, you know, Trump not too long ago, and then he placed tariffs on them because they were building a whole factory in China, and Trump wants Apple to build in America. they caved and they said, okay, we'll have plants in China, we'll have plants in India, and we'll have plants in America, right? So I think that's pretty much what came of those conversations. But again, for Nvidia to do something like this is going to be interesting because they are a major AI player, right? They are the premier artificial intelligence GPU chip maker. So again, just a thought is all. If this does come to pass, if this does actually happen and Nvidia starts producing their chips in China, then I could honestly see new highs coming. They're going to start making money again. They're going to start making all their money again. They don't have to worry about this $5.5 billion write-off. So this will be interesting to see. All right. Oracle plans to spend $40 billion on Nvidia chips to power OpenAI data center. We covered this quite a bit, all right, but I just wanted to add this again. This is all seen as tailwinds for Nvidia, demand for Nvidia, okay? So they're completing that first Stargate data center in Abilene, Texas, and this is going to use 400,000 Nvidia GB200 chips, which is a Blackwell series, and they're also going to be shipping a ton of chips to Stargate UAE, right? So Stargate UAE is just an addition of the original Stargate project, building AI infrastructure, data centers, things like that. I did not, and I just reminded myself, I totally forgot, but Trump had signed a bunch of executive orders recently to fast track nuclear power, right? To fast track the expansion of nuclear power. I have to read more into that, but basically that came from a conversation or a committee hearing from OpenAI, Sam Altman, Lisa Su from AMD, Michael and Trader from CoreWeave, and Mr. Smith from Microsoft, right? So all these players were telling them basically, Sam Altman in particular was telling them like, look, artificial intelligence is only going to get as good as the power that we have in the United States. So the more power we have, the better artificial intelligence will be because we already win. We're already winning at the chip game, the chip and hardware game. That stuff is already taking care of itself. So now it's just power that can power these chips, which can power the artificial intelligence or the software. So saw a flurry of news about those executive orders coming out. And again, I want to just congratulate the administration on being at least quick about it, right? At least, taking the time to listen to its actual businesses, the companies that operate in America and the companies that, are basically our biggest dominating power, and actually listening to what they have to say. So again, that hearing from the committee and the questions they asked, again, it inspires a lot of hope for the companies that I'm invested in, specifically Nvidia, but not only that, but the semiconductor ETF that I also have, YieldMax Chippy, right? So again, if you want to bet on AI, artificial intelligence in any way, shape, or form, right now is still in its infancy. You could still get in, all right? There's data centers being built. There's semiconductors that are still going to be in high demand. And then you also have the softwares, right? From the major hyperscalers, you have Microsoft, you have Google, you have Meta and Amazon, right? So you can still hop in on a lot of this. And Google, Amazon, they just recently had, some conferences or some calls. And, I didn't read too much into it, but, they're basically kind of ticked off that they're being treated as, like non-growers anymore, that their companies are like, dog food at this point. So I think they're really going to start ramping up their artificial intelligence softwares. Google just recently released some of their new tools, and it did look really, really cool. They had like all these videos that were generated by AI, and they look perfect, like super lifelike. And they have a slew of new tools coming out for public use. So like Carrie said, did you see that RecShare is making a weekly single stock ETF? I didn't see that. I will check into that though. Thank you I'll check into that. All right, moving on. Tesla's in the news. All right, for all of our Tesla bulls or Tesla, bears, Tesla is in the news today. Okay, they are struggling in Europe. All right, we talked about this a while ago. We talked about how Tesla is kind of losing at the EV game in China because of BYD, and now they're losing in Europe to basically BYD. And I talked about how BYD has a lot of the options standard on their cars that you would have to pay extra for Tesla. There's a lot of car reviews out there on YouTube. You guys can check them out. But really, in my opinion, I mean, BYD is a really good competitor. I mean, their cars are really, really nice. I see them out here where I live, and I started seeing them in the Middle East. I mean, they're really, really nice cars. Tesla, don't get me wrong, top dog. They were the biggest player in the space, but it looks like a cheaper competitor came out with almost all the same features you would expect from a Tesla that you'd have to pay extra for come standard. Not only that, BYD has some really awesome technology in their cars. And I'm not trying to plug BYD here. I don't even think they're available in America, but I'm just saying from a pure like technology standpoint, there's a lot of cool technology in BYDs. All right. So Tesla's grip on the European electric vehicle market weakened sharply in April as the U.S. automaker faces intensifying competition and mounting reputational damages tied to Elon Musk. All right. I don't have to tell you what those damages were or those challenges were. Doge, the famous I love you hand salute, all the stuff he was doing, and then the burning of Teslas, the attack of Tesla dealerships, and all that stuff. Again, all coming from Elon Musk. So yeah, a lot of people were not happy. A lot of Tesla shareholders were not happy by this. The U.S.-based company sold only 7,200 vehicles in Europe last month, a staggering 49% drop compared to April of 2024. All right, the decline came in stark contrast to the broader EV market or the broader EV sector, which grew 34% year over year in the same period. So again, this is showing that the decline in Teslas, the decline in their market share, right? So this is not good news. This is a headwind for Tesla. And obviously this is a headwind for Tesla in other markets as well. All right. The slump is part of a larger downward trend. Tesla's European sales have plummeted nearly 40% during the first 4 months of 2025. Again, running Doge and all that other stuff, right? So again, competition's heating up. BYD surpassed Tesla in pure EV sales in Europe for the first time, signaling a shift in consumer preferences and market dynamics. Honestly, people just hate Elon, in my opinion. People just really hate Elon, right? He really did do a lot of damage to Tesla's brand, right? By getting involved in politics. It is what it is, again, if you're a Tesla holder, if you're a Tesla shareholder, again, I tip my hat to you guys because you guys deal with the most craziest volatility. The only thing closer to that, I think, is probably Bitcoin. But that volatility is absolutely wild for Tesla holders, all right? But there is a silver lining to all of this. Elon Musk is talking about just being 24/7 back at work like he's always been, right? Elon Musk is the true epitome of an entrepreneur. Okay, whether you love him or hate him, this is a fact. He runs multiple billion-dollar companies: SpaceX, the Boring Company, Tesla, and then he also has what's the other one? XAI, right? So he has a ton of different companies, and he's managing them all with the same 8 hours or the same 12 hours that you and I are afforded every single day, right? Or 24 hours, I really should say. But this guy is just a madhouse when he's working. But now he's saying that he's going to be spending 24/7 at work. He's going to be sleeping in offices. He's not leaving anything. And shareholders loved this news, right? Shareholders absolutely loved this news. He's, again, going to be working primarily, and he did a Middle East tour, so he was talking about, kind of what Tesla's doing. And again, some people write off Tesla as like dog meat at this point, dog food, whatever you want to call it, is trash. It's not, justified. Some analysts are saying, oh, this stock's going to jump to $1,000 a share. Others are saying this stuff is cooked at this point, right? Not only is Tesla a car company, right? It is a technology company. It has battery tech, right? It has robotics. It has artificial intelligence. It has a data center. They plan to buy Nvidia GPUs. Again, another tailwind for Nvidia. So Tesla, by all measures, is a fantastic company. It's just, again, it's the CEO. It's Elon Musk, right? People are betting on the horse than they are on anything. Or excuse me, they're betting on the jockey more than they're betting on the horse, right? They're betting on Elon Musk to turn this all around, make it all better, get those sales back up, release new products, get some type of revenue in, right? Elon Musk predicts that there will be 1 million Optimus robots in the future. Everyone's going to have their own little, C3PO, they're little R2D2s, right? So this is what he's predicting, and he's betting big on robotics. So really fascinating is all. If you guys want a quick little blur and a quick shout out to It's a Wealthy Life, Dan from It's a Wealthy Life. He has a little video on this. Elon Musk just quit Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. It's a short little 11-minute video. Really recommend you guys go check him out. He publishes some really good stuff from here and there. I really enjoyed this video, but he was talking about basically betting on Elon Musk. So again, I really like that video. All right, moving on into crypto, and we're at minute 30, so we're doing really good on time here, guys. All right. Trump media is planning to raise $2.5 billion to fund a Bitcoin treasury. So now we have new companies coming out wanting to raise or create their own Bitcoin treasuries. Oh, there he is in the chat. It's a Wealthy Life. Hey, shout out to you, Dan, always. All right. I just covered this. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, I really did enjoy this little video you had on Elon Musk quitting the Republican Party. But not only that, but, you know, just kind of your bullish stance on Tesla and Elon Musk. So I always enjoy those little videos you have. Anyways, Trump media is raising $2.5 billion to fund Bitcoin treasury. Trump Media and Technology Group, stock ticker DJT, plans to raise $2.5 billion in stock and senior unsecured notes in a private placement with 50 institutional investors, in which to create the largest Bitcoin treasury of a public company. We view Bitcoin as an apex instrument to financial freedom, and now Trump Media will hold cryptocurrency as a crucial part of our assets and help defend our company against harassment and discrimination by financial institutions. All right. I don't know. This is just kind of a meme at this point. The creation of a Bitcoin treasury will create synergies for subscription payments, a utility token, planned transactions across Truth Social and Truth Plus. All right, whatever that means. Basically, they want to use Bitcoin in their ecosystem of products. Maybe that's just where a lot of companies are starting to head to. I have no idea. Again, it is there used to be you used to be able to buy plane tickets with Bitcoin, and then I think Orbitz or you know, their Orbitz and all those other, you know, booking agencies, they basically stopped that. They put a stop to that. So I don't know, guys. You Bitcoin futurists out there, you Bitcoin bulls out there, you tell me, does this make sense? You know, can you see this being adopted by other companies? All right. The offering comes ahead of Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas, featuring appearances by Vice President J.D. Vance, CEO Michael Saylor from Strategy, and White House advisor David Sachs. All right. David Sachs, I think, I forget what he runs. It's not the SEC. Is it the SEC? It probably is. And Tether CEO. No, it's not the SEC. He's the crypto czar is who David Sachs is. Right. And Tether CEO Paolo Ardoino, excuse me, along with President Trump's son, Eric and Donald Trump. All right. So they're pretty much the ones spearheading this whole event. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. Again, you have GameStop doing the same thing. You have Trump Media now doing it. And then you have the popular one, the biggest one of all, Strategy. But you also had Mara Holdings or Mara Holdings also doing the same thing. So really interesting to see. Again, I am not a huge crypto guy. All right. The only thing I would buy is Bitcoin. And even then, it would probably be in an ETF form. All right. DJT shares popped high in early trading, but then they surrendered pre-market and dipped more than 6% into the red. All right, that sucks. Okay, our big boy, and I want to cover this on this stream, right? I might make a video about this. Strategy purchased 4,020 Bitcoin, now holds 580,250 Bitcoin, right? Crazy amount. They hold just a little more, if not more, more than half of what Satoshi owns, okay? Whatever that wallet is. Regarding Bitcoin holdings, the company raised $427 million, purchased 4,000 Bitcoin, and now hold 580,000 Bitcoin. All right. Hey, we got Sauce Maker in the chat, part of the old guard. Welcome back, bro. And good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, sir. I know you travel a lot. You like to take your private jet to other places, so I welcome you back. But thanks for joining, Sauce Maker. Thank you. So there's a question I have for people, right? In this video. Let's see if I can pull it up, right? So quick shout out to Elijah, A Path to Retirement, All right, he posted this in Citizen of the Year's Discord. So if you haven't checked out Citizen of the Year or joined his community, his Discord, definitely check him out. But Elijah had posted this, and this was rather interesting, right? This is charts for Bitcoin and MSTR. Okay, Bitcoin at all-time highs, MSTR nowhere near there, right? So this, I might make a video on this because this is actually very fascinating. So I have a question, right? I have a question that I posted as a poll. And if you guys start hearing other YouTubers start to talk about this, just know that I'm covering this first as far as I know. All right. But do you think there is a decoupling happening between MSTR and Bitcoin, right? 33 or 39% of you said, yes, it's a Ponzi scheme. 61% of you said, no, this is FUD and knock it off. All right. I don't know who to choose for this one. I'm actually kind of surprised myself because I don't even know, I don't know why there's a decoupling. Let's take a look real fast. So we have MSTR. Okay. This is over the last 5 days. They are down almost 10%. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is up 1.62%. So why did that happen? Right? You guys can see it for yourself. Is there a decoupling happening between Bitcoin and MSTR? MSTR constantly raises new money, right? They issue out shares of their stock, which dilutes, shareholders to raise money so they can buy Bitcoin. At the end of the day, you still have to remember, MSTR is still a stock, okay? It is still traded on the public markets. It is still a stock. Doesn't matter how much Bitcoin. Does it look like their stuff is tied to Bitcoin? Yes. Does it look like it trades right after Bitcoin? Yes. But is it starting to look like there might be a decoupling of some sort? And my answer is yes. It looks like there might be some type of decoupling happening because they're issuing out so many shares to raise for this, right? There's a couple of headwinds with MicroStrategy, all right? And I'm not a MicroStrategy bear or bull, okay? I'm still really undecided about this particular company, all right? Here's the 3 major headwinds that they have. One, they have to deal with debt, okay? They have preferred shares that they raised for paying 10%. The company does not make any money, okay? So that's just a headwind, all right? It's just a risk. How are they paying that, et cetera. Not only that, they still have that tax thing that they have to worry about that we covered way earlier in the year, right? They have to pay taxes on some of their Bitcoin. Again, they don't make enough money to pay off that debt or to pay off that tax if they have to pay it, right? Again, we're still waiting to hear what happened. MSTR, Coinbase, they got together. They wrote a letter to the Secretary of Treasury or the IRS and said, hey, can you give us an exemption? Still no word what came of that. And then not only that, you have the debt that's piling on and they're issuing out a whole bunch of new shares, right? Further diluting what they currently have. So is there a decoupling happening between Bitcoin and MSTR? All right. Is a question that I just would like, people to ponder on, because there's a lot of people who own ETFs like MST from, what was it? Defiance, I think. Yes. MST from Defiance. There's IMST from Bitwise. These are, leveraged instruments or cover call ETFs again, for MicroStrategy. And then of course the all popular one, Misty, right? So you have Misty out there. But again, Misty is trending downward. Bitcoin is going up. Last time Bitcoin was going up, Misty was trending right behind it along with MSTR. That's no longer the case. So again, I asked the question, is there a possibility of a decoupling happening? What's the mechanics for causing this? So more time will tell us, right? What happens next will tell us. Again, Bitcoin up 16%, MSTR only up, oh my God, over a month, MicroStrategy is only up 80 basis points. Holy crap. I didn't even realize this. I didn't even look at this. This is new to me. Wow. So talk about a massive outperformance for Bitcoin. All right. I could only imagine. I haven't even looked at the share price for those other funds. I could only imagine what's going on with those. So I think there is a possibility of a decoupling happening. All right. I see we have Alex in the chat. Hey, welcome back, man. All right, guys. So covered that. We're going to head into the market segments and then we'll wrap all this up with a portfolio update. All right, guys. So S&P 500, we ended today in the green, up 2%. Okay. As I always say, if it moves up or down 1%, then you could tell if that's going to be a really good day or a really bad day, right? So we had a really, really good day. Shares did pop. We had NASDAQ up 2.39%. That was really good for the day. Tech heavy, tech focused ETF, QQQ, if you guys are interested. There's also Bitcoin. Again, Bitcoin we just covered, doing really well. Year to date, 16.6%. They're catching up very quickly to gold. Gold is still the best performing asset year to date, right? They had this huge sell off. Again, people, this was during the China U.S. trade announcement and trade agreements, being worked on, negotiated. So a lot of people were getting out of gold, probably moving back into equities, to take advantage of that risk. But now it looks like it's starting to spike back up, I guess. Tariff fears or people just buying the dip? I have no idea, right? I have no idea. There is still, actually, you know what? I take that back. What was happening around here was last week. Last week, we had a treasury auction that went horrible, right? We had to issue out more treasuries at a higher yield in order to attract investors. So that was not good for this nation, right? That was not good for America. So people are flocking back to gold because they're worried of a, financial collapse, a recession, inflation, stagflation, pick your poison. There's 100 things who's going all into this. All those who yellowed all into Misty. Padre, did you buy 5,000 shares? I thought I saw in the chat you bought like $5,000 worth. Was that you? Was that what you bought? All right, so 10-year treasury still hovering at 4.6%. It's kind of been fluctuating. Again, we use this to kind of gauge where mortgage rates are. I'm starting to believe this prevailing theory that we're just going to have to accept that mortgage rates will still be at elevated highs for a very long time. It just is what it is. It's the new norm, right? We're still waiting on the Federal Reserve to drop interest rates. There's a lot of talk that they're not going to drop interest rates 2 times this year. And now it's leaning more towards 1 because the economy is so strong. But we still have to wait for all the tariff trade negotiations to actually take effect this quarter. So we should have more news on how the economy is doing next month and the month after, and then, for the quarter, right? We'll see what those effects really were. Padre says, I'm just a dragon chilling on his precious metals. I love it. I love it. Matt Thompson says it could just be a sporadic decoupling, but it's too risky holding shares that are being diluted in huge numbers. And he's referencing MSTR, right? We just covered this. MSTR to Bitcoin. Bitcoin up 16%. MSTR just up 80 basis points. This is freaking wild, guys. Like, this is crazy. I'm just seeing this chart for the first time. I only looked at the last 5 days. I have not covered MSTR or Bitcoin in like a couple of days now. So this is absolutely crazy that this is happening. Yeah, there is a huge decoupling happening. And I think this is going to be, it's only going to get exponentially worse from here, in my opinion, because again, you still have the whole debt, the money thing. How is Michael Saylor actually making money to pay off that debt? This is crazy. Padre says he bought 5,000 shares of a different company. Oh, okay. Not Misty. So, okay, I got you. Anyways, so yes, 10-year treasury, VNQ. All right, we use VNQ as a weather gauge for the REIT market, and right now they are doing pretty good. We had a bounce back. All right, we're not quite up to $90. We just constantly been hovering around this, 85, 86 mark. So hopefully in the next week or week and a half, we'll probably get back up to 90. Again, real estate's a very boring asset class, nothing too sexy, no new technology there. But I do enjoy my REITs. Okay. All right. Moving on to the portfolios, guys, let's get into that. So right here, we're going to hit this first. So this is the portfolio. Let me just refresh it to make sure that this is the latest and greatest. All right, so come on, there we go. Okay, so sitting at $98,000. Again, I saw all-time highs of like 103, so still down a little bit. No new position changes, right? No, I didn't purchase anything from Nvidia, PLTW, Chippy, XPay, or XDTE. This one share of NVDU is for a video that I am making. All right, I wanted to buy it just to kind of share the rationale and the thinking behind why you would trade something like this. So expect that video to come out here shortly. Okay, I have to wait until after earnings in order to show it off. Right. I also did have TQQQ in here. I had one share, again, as part of the same video. So expect that video to come out soon. All right. For our margin buffer, all right, we're looking still pretty good. $40,000 for the margin buffer. I'm still low risk, so I still have a good amount to go. Again, I haven't received any new divs today, and I have not bought anything except for that TQQQ and the NVDU, all right, which are bull shares for Nvidia and the QQQ, all right. All right, let's take a look at M1 Finance, and then we'll wrap up the stream, guys. So let me log in here. I always got to log in. Padre says gold will retrace. I'm guessing 50%, then it's going to the moon. That's all right. Hey, I hope it does, man. I really do. Without screwing up the stock market, of course. I don't want to have to buy gold right now. Hold on one second. Let me just get it there so it's presented easier. Boom. All right, cool. So here's the M1 finance portfolio. No new buys here. Yeah, nothing new here. All right, it's 366,000. Again, I'm just letting the REITs kind of ride the wave. I'm letting the technology focused ETF VGT kind of ride the wave. BDCs, no new additions. Again, just sitting there and chilling. Crypto ETF doing pretty well, up 15%. All right, this was down like 24%, I think, at one point. And then this company, you can ignore. That's just a meme for me. But other than that, that is the update, right? No new buys. The REIT portfolio is recovering. Again, it just keeps hovering up and down, up and down. I'm hoping this thing really, really takes off. Probably, I got to start planning for next year at this point, guys. REITs probably won't have a good year this year, all things considered, with everything going on. They'll probably see a better chance at a potential bull run, or at least a recovery sometime next year, right? The interest rates are still really high. We still have $1 trillion of mortgage stuff that is coming due, and that is still a huge risk. It kind of died down the last couple of months because of all the talks with tariffs and everything else, but that is still there. That hasn't gone away. I did hear Scott Besson, he was interviewed, and they're kind of moving away from that whole sovereign wealth fund idea that was floated in the beginning of the year, and now they want to focus on bringing down the debt. And I think he did mention the whole mortgage thing, right? He did, like the host was saying, we have the 5-year, the 10-year, and the 20 and 30-year. What are the plans for those? And Besson is talking about trying to bring those down, trying to bring the rates down. Working on fixing the 10-year treasury specifically. So hopefully we'll see better days with that, but who knows, because businesses use the 10-year. The 10-year again is just a weather gauge for business loans, right? So again, hopefully that will come down. So that'll pretty much do it for this stream, guys. We're pretty much at minute 45, so we're kind of finishing a little early. So I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see anything new. So I think that's going to do it for me, guys. I have some banger videos coming out hopefully this week. I just got to get through filming, but I got other junk I got to deal with too. So hopefully I'll be able to get some of those videos out to this week. All right. But stay in there with me. So outside of that, guys, I appreciate you joining the stream. Appreciate you cutting it up with me in the chat, and appreciate you guys supporting the channel. All right. Because without you guys, this channel probably wouldn't exist. So with that being said, guys, you guys have a great rest of your evening. I will be sitting in the Discord in the chat for probably the next 20 to 30 minutes in case you guys want to join in on the voice chat. But I'll be sitting there for a little bit, chopping it up with you guys in there. So if you guys have anything and want to join, link will be down below in the description. So outside of that, I will see you guys in the next stream. You guys have a great rest of your evening. Great rest.